Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this is part 2 in the mini-series I'm doing. Are your life and relationship issues fated? So in this part 2 we discuss the issue a bit and then focus particularly on a supreme and yes, fated declaration of Vedic astrology, the Nakshatras. And if you know the Nakshatras your planets occupy, this states so much about the fate and destiny you chose to be born with this time, to work with and develop better spiritual awareness and heal. But it is fated and destined and affects us in that way, at least to start with. Now the Nakshatras are the wonderful 27-sign lunar zodiac of Vedic astrology. And each Nakshatra description is a supreme declaration of our personality issues and our love scripts. I'll give an example of this at the end of this post. And if you know about the Nakshatras occupied by you or your partner's moon, sun and ascendant at the very least, you can say so much about the personality and behaviour issues and attitudes and relationship issues that are indeed fated and destined for you and your partner. But that's not to say they cannot be healed. So, before we look at the detail of a couple of nakshatra examples, let's look at the question, is our life fated? And the answer to this has to be yes. It can be predicted what I or you will be, will do, including, this has to be accepted, it can be predicted that we will all do wrong and it will define that. See, the point is we incarnate to experience something, an opportunity for spiritual growth. Not easy, of course. With the ideal that we then work at those fates and karmas described, that through suffering them, or benefiting from them if they're positive, we develop greater spiritual awareness. And by the way, developing greater spiritual awareness and healing and receiving healing is very different from spiritual bypass, by the way. Yes, of course, we all of us come into this life with fates and destined karmas, and Vedic astrology can declare them well, Western astrology also somewhat, and some appear to be fixed, but many of course are not fixed and can be healed if we can only open our eyes, develop the awareness and experience the healing methods. And of course we need to add to this statement that the purpose of our life experience is actually that we develop higher and higher spiritual awareness. That is why we are here. And the insights of astrology most certainly can open our eyes to our fates, to the nature of our personality, to our incarnational life purpose, to the functioning of our relationship. We are here to develop higher spiritual awareness and thus burn our negative karmas and thus build on our positive karmas that we came in with from past life. What we will have to focus on this life is a carryover from past lives and can be so well declared by astrology. So the point I'm making here is that part of our karmic awareness is that we incarnate with negative scripts, including negative scripts, of course. So that, this is because we need to experience what it feels like when we do wrong. It's a very difficult thing to say, but it is the truth. We need to feel how that feels. Wrong actions, negative karmas, or to be born into that, and many of us are. Vedic astrology predicts these scripts and events so well. And for example, certain nakshatra padas, each nakshatra has 4 quarters or padas, certain nakshatra padas give a clear statement that we're likely to produce some fairly correctly definable unethical behaviour until we learn from that. So what we need to learn, to realise, is that another dimension of this, those other people who harm us or have harmed us in our life, the truth is, actually help us to heal our karma, if only we can see how that fated experience worked in our life, and thus grow spiritually and avoid ever doing those things. This is because we experience other people's wrongdoing with the potential that we will heal, and then we may even heal others. And as I've already said, we also need to experience our own wrongdoing and heal because of that. So it helps us when we can come to this realization and draw a line over our past, go through the needed healings and insights that hopefully are on offer, and make the pathway forward freed, walking as the spiritual hero. We therefore have to accept that what those other people are and what they did to us is often like very bad. But amazingly, the only true way to handle it is that we have to come to a position where we are grateful for the opportunity we had to heal and grow strong and become more ethical with raised spiritual awareness ourselves because of what they did to us. And part of that is that Vedic astrology can declare that we're most likely to do wrong ourselves in certain specifically definable ways. We have to go through these experiences to connect to source, to the source of spiritual enlightenment and energy. And then we have to learn to forgive and to draw a line, and that may take decades. And to the extent that we are connected to source, we will be healed. If we are connected to source, the idea of hurt will thus, in a sense, go out of the window, because source is much bigger than clinging to the past. I'm reminded of, the words came into my head as I was writing the blog, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. In other words, forgive them at this stage they are at of their spiritual development. Remember, and this is key, that it is we who created this birth, this lifetime, and created these experiences. Indeed, I'd mention here, I've recently connected Love Star Dating, a worldwide dating site for those on a spiritual pathway who are seeking love. And a unique feature of Love Star Dating is that it has listed on it presentations of astrologers and healers whose services you can avail yourself of if you feel those would help. Several of them give wonderful past life readings. Several of them give shamanic healings, for example, of your inner child, and several of us give wonderful astrology readings. You see, amongst other things, Vedic astrology can predict so accurately some of the things we will do that are wrong. It's so useful to heal this, to hear this, and to handle it, and then to go forward healed. And the point I want to tell you now is that I've recently done a vast project of work extending Chiron and Lilith into the framework analysis of Vedic astrology. And that reveals wonders about the operation of Chiron and Lilith in your chart, in your life. Chiron is our existential wound that we have to experience, but in the healing of that we can become the healer of others. Lilith is our shadow self into which shadows so much of us get stuffed, including our wild side, including our buried and disallowed power. And we need to know what that statement is and bring the stuff out of the shadow into the fullness of ourself and our expression. So including Chiron and Lilith in your astrology declaration makes your life understanding much clearer and much more accurate, with insights that offer you opportunity for healing, for moving closer to source, into the Sattvic. When Chiron and Lilith pinpoint these scripts and wounds, instead of us not being able to see the crucial meaning of us for these things, there's now a new offering of such needed insight due to Lilith and Chiron perceptions, and indeed due to my huge recent project incorporating Chiron and Lilith into your Vedic astrology declaration. And Vedic astrology includes your Varga charts, the divisional charts derived from the birth charts, each of which says something unique and special and true about a particular area of your life. And when you put Lilith and Chiron in those Varga charts, the additional insight is so awesome, so helpful. In fact, it's important for us to accept that the discovery of planets in the heavens has actually been a marker for the spiritual evolution of human consciousness. So, for example, Uranus was discovered at the time of the French Revolution and the American Revolution. Pluto was discovered at the time of Freud's and Jung's so needed discovery of the unconscious and the shadow. Now, in recent decades, Chiron and Lilith have been discovered. And there's a new revolution of psychological depth awareness, of bigger potential and opportunity for each of us coming into our proper power due to that awareness, of us having each better potential for being far more able to perceive and understand our wounds and our shadow side, and mutually heal ourselves and heal our love relationships thereby. Chiron and Lilith can now help us see even better, perhaps, yes, I think, than Uranus and Pluto. We need both, of course. A great culmination is occurring in human awareness, in human perception, in healing modalities. And of course, my Love Star dating site includes experts at those. Each of us is different. We have to realise that. We have to let go of my way is the smart way, my formula is the only way, my guru is the power holder. We have to open to the new consciousness. And this is such a long way further on than, well, paying for indulgences to the Catholic Church, for example, that some of us were brought up with. And so, having reviewed those issues, I'd now like to focus on a couple of examples which show you that the 27 Nakshatras, the lunar signs of Vedic astrology, are actually a supreme indication of our fated personality and relationship scripts. And that this declaration is so deepened by the inclusion into the astrology statements of our Western psychodynamic astrology and by awareness of Chiron and Lilith in your chart. So let's focus on the utter power of the declaration of 2 of the 27 Nakshatras in understanding our fated relationship and love scripts, and thus developing higher spiritual awareness and healing. Have a look at my recent blog and video post, Understanding the Astrology of the Moons of a Couple is Key, and Vedic astrology says far more than Western astrology. See that post. And these 2 examples I've actually carried over into this post about the fate and destiny dimensions. So in that post, the man in the example had his moon in Revati Nakshatra. Revati is the 27th Nakshatra, the final Nakshatra at the end of the Zodiac. And basically, like all the Nakshatras, it has 4 padas or quarters, and that makes a difference to you, where your planets are, which pada. And the ruling deity is Pushan. And the yoni or power animal is the female elephant, so it's all about nurturing, understanding. And the motivation is moksha or spiritual liberation. The guna triplicity is sattva, sattva, sattva. Revatis are offered a totally sattvic and spiritual possibility. The Ayurvedic dosha is kapha, the sex is female. The caste is shudra, servant, service orientated. The quality is soft. All the nakshatras are characterized by these different headings. So if you or your partner were born with planets, especially Sun, Moon and Ascendant in Revati Nakshatra, that is your fate and destiny. And it includes dimensions that we definitely have to heal and grow and understand. But the overall description of Revati is mystics with a belief in the goodness of humanity. It depends on their level of consciousness whether they can find the energy, will and potential for growth. But at higher levels of consciousness, Revatis will be compassionate and forgiving, devoted to good, often needing to live by water, dedicated to giving nourishment and fertility, empathetic, sweet, sensitive and caring, responsible and orientated to friendship, but with big absorption issues. Totally flexible to the point of self-loss, codependent, problems with boundaries and psychic protection, needing seclusion to protect themselves from the harsh realities of life and other people. This is their fate and destiny. It's so good to hear it and understand it, work with it, heal it, and develop the needed better spiritual perception. Revatis are meant for worlds greater and more special and more beautiful than this world. They're visionary and beyond the consciousness level of their society. They have tomorrow's skills for today's work. Revatis protect the soul in its spiritual journey through this life towards death and rebirth. Revati is the final phase in the cycle of rebirths. There is a great need for a Revati to find his or her true path. And then, the second Nakshatra example in my recent post, which I urge you to look at, understanding the astrology of the moons of a couple, is key, and Vedic astrology says far more than Western astrology. Let's look at the second example of the first Nakshatra, Ashwini Nakshatra, at the start of Aries. So the ruling planet of Ashwini is Ketu, the south node of the moon. The Devata is the Ashwini Kumara, the healer twins, the divine physicians. The power animal is stallions streaking across the skies of dawn. The guna triplicity is Rajas, Rajas, Rajas. The Ayurvedic dosha is Vata, the gender is male. And Ashwinis are pioneers, innovators and explorers, heroic, courageous, restless, impatient with a zest for life, strong desire to be of service. Ashwinis are energetic, magnetic, attractive. They're quick in speech and actions with spiritual tendencies, zeal and zest. They're trailblazers who can perform healing miracles, but they can be irresponsible and inconsiderate. The key theme, if you have Ashwini, sun, moon or ascendant, or your other planets maybe in Ashwini, is to learn to be the horse tamer. Ashwinis have a danger of rushing into relationships